Hey there everybody, and welcome to this presentation on journaling in counseling, strategies and uses. This is part of the NC, MHCE, and NCE exam review series. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Snipes. In this really short video, we're going to explore at least 4 different forms of journaling and identify 11 different ways that you can use journaling to improve health, mental health, and even behavior change. So we're going to start with the types of journaling. Let me back up and say when people think of journaling, a lot of times they think of keeping a diary, and that is one type of journaling. But there are a lot of different ways that we can use journaling in order to track our behaviors, in order to gain perspective. So let's take a look at a few of them. So baseline journaling is one of the simplest, and it's one that I like to do because I'm not a narrative type of journaler. So I like to have something where I can keep charts or logs. That's my kind of thing. With baseline journaling, what you're keeping track of is the frequency, the intensity, or the duration of a behavior. So for example, if you are trying to reduce how frequently you get extremely angry, then you may keep a log throughout the day and throughout the week of each time you get angry, how intense it was on a scale of 1 to 5, and how long you stayed angry. And the goal of treatment ultimately would be to reduce the frequency, the intensity, and the duration, but you're probably going to see, unequal progress in those. You may start reducing the intensity, but you're still getting angry as much. But that's okay, because that means you're moving in the right direction. I like baseline journaling because it helps us see those micro changes that people are making, and it helps keep people motivated. It also helps us see if something is starting to go amiss, because we can look at the journal, and if for some reason the behavior is starting to increase and we don't want it to, we can step back and take a look and say, what's going on that might be making this behavior increase instead of decrease? Narrative journaling is what we typically think of like writing in a diary. And you can use narrative journaling to reflect on the day, write about what happened. You can use narrative journaling to reflect on a particular episode or incident. You can write about it in order to try to gain more awareness of your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors and how they interact in that particular situation. When you are in distress, when you're angry, anxious, depressed, a lot of times you are thinking in your emotional mind. You are not as easily able to access your cognitions. So in narrative therapy, you're stepping back and you're observing. And in dialectical behavior therapy, Linehan talks about mindfulness as observing, describing, and participating. In narrative therapy, you are writing out your observations. So you're describing what happened, and then you can use that information to participate in order to figure out, okay, what do I want to do the same the next time, and what might I need to change in order to work towards my goals. You can also write in what I call an alternate voice narrative. So you're reflecting from a different perspective. Maybe you got into a disagreement with your significant other or your best friend. So you might write a journal as if they were writing it. You're writing it from their perspective in order to try to gain an understanding, maybe, of what they might have been thinking. You can also write from the perspective of your younger self or your older self. 20 years from now, when you look back on this, what would you tell yourself? If you're writing from the perspective of your younger self, what would 8-year-old you have said? Because a lot of times our reactions are often based in prior schema, prior learned behaviors. So if we tap into that 8-year-old, we might start understanding, okay, it makes sense to a certain extent why I reacted that way to that particular thing. So be open to writing from an alternate voice, to trying to take a different perspective to see if it gives you a greater depth of understanding of what's going on. Some people really don't like writing prose, and that's cool, I get it. There are some programs online, and I'm sure you can get apps where you can create graphic novels, and some people prefer to do that. They prefer to have something that's a little bit more artistic. Some people prefer to write in poems instead of prose, and more power to you. However, it helps you to get that information out, whatever it is that you're trying to journal about, it is going to be helpful. And journaling, well, we'll talk about the uses for journaling in a minute. Pictorial, and this is something that people who are really artistic might choose to do, where they're drawing representations of what they were feeling or what they are feeling in the moment. So pictorial can be useful for people who are like I said, are very artistic, and especially use different media. I had one person I worked with who, when he was feeling particularly depressed or angry, would use charcoal. And when he was feeling more hopeful or optimistic, he tended to use pastels and other media that weren't quite as bold. Faces, colors, and animals. Now, a lot of adults won't like this particular approach, but this is really useful for children. And as a parent or a caregiver, you can help your child start becoming more mindful with this type of journaling. So at the end of the day, you might show them a faces sheet and ask them which face they felt most of the day, or which face they're feeling right then. Some people don't like faces. They'd rather look at colors. Did you feel red or black or blue or green? How was it that you felt today? What color did you feel and why? Or, and kids really love animals. What animal did you feel like today? Were you a lion or a bunny rabbit or a squirrel, and why? So being relatively flexible, but this is a great way to get kids involved. And quite honestly, as an adult, I kind of like this too, because it gets me to look at it from a different perspective. So if I was particularly anxious during the day, I might say that I felt like a squirrel most of the day. And then I step back and I think, what's going on in a squirrel's mind? So it can send you down, different ways of thinking if you approach it from a more creative side of your brain as opposed to the logical side of your brain. Worksheets are also very helpful if you want somebody, or if you are trying to journal, to do something that's relatively narrative, but they have difficulty with just sitting down and writing out prose, then giving them worksheets with prompts that they're supposed to answer whenever they do it. So when I worked in residential, we used to have morning and evening journaling, and each person had a sheet that had prompts to help them evaluate how they were feeling physically, affectively, cognitively, if there was anything going on in their relationships, what their goals were for the day, etc. And this helped a lot of people because it provided guidance on what do I write. And it also kept it succinct for those people who really don't like to write a lot. They had to provide short answers. They didn't have to write a paragraph. And audio and video can also be helpful. Some people don't like to write. For some people, it hurts them to write. For others, for example, people with dyslexia, sometimes writing and or typing can be frustrating. So audio can be helpful, where you just get a voice app and put it on your phone, or your digital device, or even on your computer, and you can record it. Or on your computer, you can do voice to text. If you record it with audio or video, you can use that recording and again have it translated from voice to text. Why am I emphasizing the text? Because when we talk and when we think, what we say, what we think kind of appears and disappears. But when it's there in text, it's more ever present. And it can encourage people to think about it a little bit more. It keeps it more organized and in your sight so you can think about it, and it just doesn't like get pushed to the side really quickly. So I do suggest, even for people who may have dyslexia or some other sort of learning disability, to put things in text as much as possible or in some sort of format that helps them be able to see it indefinitely. So they can continue to look at what they said and ponder it and think about it from different perspectives. And I keep talking about audio. Some people prefer to do it with video. They want to keep their own little vlog, and that's fine. You know, obviously you're probably not going to keep a public vlog, but keeping a private video journal on your laptop or something can be an alternative to writing in prose. So how can you use journaling? What is it good for? Well, a lot of therapists are going to recommend journaling. So it's important to recognize or figure out why it's useful, and also go back to those techniques that I just discussed to identify what technique are you most likely going to be able to stick with. And it's really important in order to get compliant. If you told me to write a narrative journal every single day, my compliance would probably be pretty low because I don't know how to start. I don't really know what I want to say, blah, blah. You know, at the most narrative you're going to get out of me is giving me a worksheet with prompts. But like I said, I tend to like lists and logs and things that are a little bit more succinct. That's just me. So journaling can be used to identify and restructure thoughts and cognitive distortions. So when you write about a situation, you write down what you were thinking, what you were telling yourself, and then you can objectively, when you're not steeped in adrenaline and anxiety or anger, you can go back and objectively analyze if you were using a cognitive distortion. And if you were, then you can rewrite it using more accurate cognitions. Journaling can help you make connections between thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. When you're journaling it out, you can start to see when I think this, it makes me feel this way, and then I act this way. Oh, that makes sense now. Or when I feel this way, then I start having pessimistic thoughts and I start to withdraw from others. So you can start to see how different things all fit together, and you can figure out where you might want to fine-tune things. If you need to address your thoughts, address your cognitions, or if maybe you need to change your behaviors. Maybe you recognize that when you drink, you tend to become much more pessimistic and feel more depressed. Well, that would give you a clue. You can also use journaling to help you purge and organize thoughts. I've used the analogy before that ruminative thoughts, when we're thinking about something and we just have them going 6 ways till Sunday in our head, we've got monkey mind, and we're trying to remember things, it can be really hard to organize because it's like you're trying to juggle and organize the balls at the same time and try to get like all the green balls on this side and all the red balls on this side. It doesn't work. So when you journal, you're getting it all out of your head and you're putting it on paper. And a lot of times, and we don't really understand exactly why our brain responds this way, but a lot of times when we write it down, where we've got it, concretely, so we know we can't forget it, our brain lets go of it. And it doesn't keep bouncing around in our head because our brain goes, okay, I know you're not going to forget that now. So journaling can be helpful for organizing thoughts, like all the things that you've got to do. Write them down. And then a lot of times it'll help tame that monkey mind because you won't feel like you're still trying to juggle and do your work at the same time. You can use journaling for behavior tracking and progress, and this can sometimes be used in a vision journal. And a vision journal is creating a vision, identifying what your rich and meaningful life looks like, and then each day writing about the progress that you made toward that vision. What did you do to move toward or away from that vision today? And what do you want to continue doing? And what might you need to adjust? You can also use journaling as a narrative with prompts to enhance mindfulness and insight. And that's like the journal I was telling you about that we used in residential. Each morning, people would get up and they would do their meditations, and then they would focus and say, how do I feel physically? Why? How do I feel emotionally? Why? How do I feel cognitively? Why? How do I feel in this environment right now, and why? And then what do I need to do in order to mitigate any vulnerabilities? So if I'm not feeling emotionally great, if I'm feeling depressed, what do I need to do in order to be compassionate and protect myself today from excess stress that might trigger or worsen that depression? And what can I do maybe to think about improving the next moment, acknowledging how I feel, acknowledging what's causing it, and then taking steps to address it. You can also use journaling to increase gratitude with a gratitude list or journal. And it's important to remember in your gratitude journal to include your friends. A lot of times we include things like I've got a house, I've got a job, whatever. But it's also important to include your friends in there, the people in your life that you're grateful for. Some people like to do this as a list, just write it down. Some people like to do it prose, talk about what they're grateful for that day. Some people like to do it a little bit more artistically and maybe get some branches and put them in a vase and then get some present tags. And on each present tag, write one thing that you're grateful for. Hang those on the branches like leaves to create what we call a gratitude tree. So yes, you're not journaling in a book, but you are still compiling your thoughts. And that's really what journaling is all about. You can enhance your awareness of your impact on others and their impact on you through journaling. So you might journal about interactions you had with people throughout the day and identify which ones helped you feel empowered and safe and which ones not so much. And also become more mindful of your impact on them. When I interacted with this person today, did I improve their moment, or did I contribute to their distress? And why? Was it something, did I encroach on their boundaries? Was I not empathetic? What was it that I did or didn't do? And is it something I need to address? Everybody is responsible for how they handle their own emotions. So just because you do something, maybe you have to, scold your child or talk to a subordinate and, get on them about something. It may make them upset. It may trigger distress in them. If you do it in the kindest way possible, the most helpful way possible, you are treating them as you want to be treated. You're providing that feedback, which evidently is necessary. What they do with their emotions is on them. That's different than being, openly mean to somebody and treating them in a way that you wouldn't want to be treated. So this can really help you identify, are you treating others the way you want to be treated? And are you, sort of improving their moment? You can use journaling to enhance your self-esteem by keeping track of your accomplishments. What did I do right today? What did I do well today? You can give yourself compliments in your self-esteem journal. Nobody else has to read it, but tell yourself the things that you would tell your best friend. If they're having a good hair day, maybe you'd say, looks like you're having a great hair day today. Well, tell yourself the same thing if that's true. If they do something particularly well, or you just want to note how kind they've been lately, great. So do the same thing to yourself. If you notice that you've been particularly compassionate lately and you're proud of that, then give yourself a pat on the back for it. Keeping this self-esteem journal with your accomplishments and your compliments, your recognition of what you're doing well is great to have around, because there are going to be times that you screw up. And it's important to be able to look back and acknowledge, yes, I made a mistake here. I did something that, I'm not proud of, or I failed, or whatever. But being able to look back and counterbalance mistakes and failures with successes and positive things is important for continued growth, to keep that vision, keep that awareness of the entire range of what you do, instead of focusing just on the failures or the mistakes. You can use journaling to work through grief and forgiveness with unsent letters. Maybe you've got people in your past that you still hold resentment towards, or you still grieve their loss, or you didn't get to say things before you lost them. Journaling by writing letters to them can be very cathartic, because you're getting all that stuff out. And you can either write it in a book and keep that book. Some people will write it and then they will, go outside and read it to the universe and then, burn it. Some people will write it, then shred it, whatever you want to do. Generally, these letters are not sent, but they are a way for you to get out those feelings, get out those thoughts, and process them so they don't keep bouncing around and taking up space in your brain. You can identify subconscious messages with dream journaling. And, I'm not big on dream interpretation, but I know, and heck, my husband even notices, that when I'm stressed about work, I have the same one or two dreams every single time. So if I have this dream and it comes up and, I've had the same dream, at various permutations on and off for the past 25 years. And, it's important for me to recognize that when I start having that dream, I'm getting really stressed and I'm holding that stress throughout my sleep time. Writing down your dreams can also help you just explore, why did my brain go there? And sometimes it may be completely innocuous. Sometimes it may give you a clue about something you're stressed about. And so you can look at it and possibly process it. I had this weird dream about my daughter and a random turtle that she found and released in our pond the other day. And so thinking about that, I'm like, what in the world did that mean? Ultimately, my daughter loves animals very much. And in my dream, bad things happened to the turtle. And she was very upset. And I hate seeing her upset. I have to, she's an adult now. I got to let her have her feelings. But for some reason, there was something that was concerning me that made me think that, maybe I needed to do something because maybe she was upset. And so writing about your dreams, you may not get a true understanding of what they were, but I know it had something to do with me not wanting her to be upset. So, it made me feel better. I checked in with her the next morning. How are things going? Everything was fine. And I didn't have the dream again. So score for me. And then finally, you can enhance positivity and awareness of dialectics. That means the good and the bad, with a positivity journal. And they've actually done research on this. And they found that people who spend 20 minutes a day journaling about the things that went right that day, and some people don't journal about it. They just dedicate like dinner time to only talking about the things that went right that day. It tends to improve their mood, and it tends to improve their cognitive perceptions. Instead of being pessimistic, they tend to be more optimistic, and that change tends to persist past when they're doing the journaling. So the next morning, they tend to get up and feel more optimistic. So that can be good. Now, I'm not saying only focus on the positive all the time. No, that's toxic positivity. It's not what we want. All I'm saying is take a time out where you say, all right, the other 23 hours and 40 minutes of the day, I am noticing all the crap. But during this 20 minutes, I'm going to notice the positive, and I'm just going to focus on the positive so I can recognize that there is good in the world. And you can even do this if you go outside and I spend 20 minutes looking around and identifying things that make you happy. And it can be visual, auditory, whatever. Identifying sights, smells, sounds that make you happy. Noticing what is right in your environment right now. So, for me, it would be bunny rabbits, birds, our chickens. There are a lot of different things that I can look at and say, you know what? This is okay. Journaling is a tool that can be used between counseling sessions or just by an individual on a day-to-day basis to help you continue to make progress toward your goals. Journaling needs to be tailored to the preferences and abilities of the person. Obviously, a 5 or 8-year-old is probably not going to write a narrative journal. They're going to do the faces or the animals, or maybe even an audio journal if they're a little bit older. But, somebody who is an adult may have a wider array of things to choose, ways to choose to journal. So, I know I have not hit every possible method of journaling or every possible way of using journaling. And if you have a way that you use journaling that you really like, please share that in the comments below.